everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and I'm going through my favorite games from the different publishers that exist. Now, this is always kind of a tricky thing to do, especially when I talk about some American publishers, because they bring over games from other companies, so there's always the possibility that there's crossover, or you say this game is from somebody else first, and I get that. Today I'm talking about Tasty Minstrel Games. This is kind of a sadder list for me to do because this is kind of a finished list. They're not making any more games. The company is basically defunct at this point. But for a while, Tasty Minstrel Games was doing a fantastic job at bringing over many great games. And they had a pretty strong niche as doing a lot of good, solid games, Euro-style games. They started off with a few smaller games, and in fact, one of their most famous games missed my list, Eminent Domain. That's one that I like a lot. It just didn't happen to make my top 10 list. There are two games I'm deliberately excluding because I like the versions from other companies better. That would be Amun-Re and Colosseum. Both those games may show up in other publishers' lists, so you might see them there, but those are both fantastic games and some of my favorite games. But here are my top 10 favorite games published by Tasty Minstrel. Number 10 is Scoville. Now, I'm a big hot sauce fan. As I'm getting older, I'm looking much more for the flavor than I am looking for the heat. But this is a game about hot sauce. I like that idea. You're growing peppers, and it's more, the theming of the game is more about putting together different color peppers to create other color peppers so that, or getting different color peppers to then make chilies and hot sauces. But it's still fun. It's called Scoville based on the Scoville scale, which is how you measure how hot a hot sauce is. But it's kind of an abstract game, but it's one that I enjoy. Number 9 is Flip City. Now, Flip City is a deck builder game. There's a lot of deck building games in existence, but Flip City uses both sides of the card. And in fact, the whole point of this game is to flip cards over. You flip them back and forth. I want to be very clear, my liking of Flip City is the original game, not the second version of it. I didn't like that one nearly as much, but I thought this was a clever game. Multiple ways to win. Can you play out as many cards as you possibly can, or get to a certain level, adding cards, flipping them to the other side. It's a little bit of an odd duck type game, but I thought it was enjoyable. So my number 9, Flip City. Number 8 is Old West Impresario. Now, Tasty Minstrel, I like their art and their Western theme, and this is one of a couple games. I'll mention one of the other ones later. But in this game, you are building, you're drafting dice, and you're using those dice to add buildings to your kind of Old West town that you're putting out in front of you, or to activate the buildings in that town. It's a very simple game, but the idea of which dice do I want? Will I use that die to get another building? As I put these buildings out, they're going to score in different ways, or will I activate these buildings to do some cool effects? It's a lot of fun, so that's Old West Impresario. Number 7 is one that does not get a lot of love, and that's Exodus Fleet. Now, this is the theme of it's kind of cool. Earth is blowing up or something, and you are rescuing people, trying to get everybody out. And so you have these ships, and you're trying to fill them up with people getting points for you. And you're doing that, and so it's very much a Euro-style game, an engine-building game, as this ship will allow you to do some things, and you get resources to get other ships and things. But I liked how this came together. The theme is kind of a cool theme, but taking the theme out, it's a pretty solid game, and yet for some reason, this one did not get a lot of love, but I recommend it. Number 6 is Oracle of Delphi. Stefan Feld gets a lot of love, right? His big point salad style games. This one does not. This is often overlooked by many Feld fans because it's not a point salad game. This is literally a race game, where you're racing around the board, trying to accomplish different tasks. The oracles, these things moving up and down, giving you special powers. I really like it, though. It is very interesting to me. I would never have guessed it was designed by Feld, but it is one of my favorite games from him, and it is my 6th favorite game from Tasty Minstrel. Number 5 is Trade on Tigris. Now, Trade on Tigris started off by being called Trading in the Mediterranean as a joke made by Ryan Sturm and Jeff Engelstein, because I said I was tired of trading in the Mediterranean games, and they said they wanted to make one that was actually good. The name got changed eventually, and the name is not very interesting, actually, Trading in the Tigris, but the game itself is really fascinating. It is all about trading. It's about moving up and down on these different tracks, and what kind of government you're going to have, and how you'll be a leader, trying to give people the cards that will help them, but they need to give you the cards that will help you. There's some really cool concepts here, and once again, and this is kind of the motto of Tasty Minstrel, this game just didn't get a lot of buzz, but I think it's a really good one. Trade on Tigris. Number 4 is Chimera Station. Worker placement games are fun, but what if you could customize your worker? And that's what this game's all about. You have these aliens that you place out, but each alien can have 3 sections put together as you put them on the board, and that's what makes the game fun. If they have one section, you don't need to feed them because they're like organic and can feed themselves. If you have another one, when you put it on certain spots, those spots will do better for you. That's a neat concept, and they're big plastic workers, and you're deciding which ones to buy as you put out your workers and get the different actions, and there's a big growing spot to put them too. It's fun, and it's worth checking out, Chimera Station. Number 3 is another one from that Western series I mentioned, and that's Pioneer Days. This one's about making that long trek across America, going west, go west, and I think it just plays very well. You know, there's going to be negative things happening to you, which is not usually a thing I like in games, but in this you're planning for them. You're trying to get the right people. You have a special ability which works, I think, well for you, you know, kind of working out how you're going to get across. It's rolling dice and utilizing those dice in different ways. It's bright, it's colorful, it's not overly long. I think a game of this can last like an hour or less, and yet it feels like there's a lot going on in it. I think the theme is strong, and the gameplay itself is very interesting. That's Pioneer Days. Number 2 is Yokohama. Yokohama is a big game. I mean, this is one of the games that when Tasty Minstrel did it, I was like, Deluxeified. They were known for the Deluxeified bits, and the Yokohama Deluxeified version is gorgeous. In this game, it's a worker movement game. You have one worker, and you build out a bunch of different boards that your worker will be moving to as you're building on these boards and going around and collecting resources. In some ways, if you're a fan of Istanbul, this game feels like an upgraded, more in-depth version of that. But even if you've never played that game before, there's a lot of cool things about Yokohama, and I like that every game's going to feel different based on the things out there. There's technology, which is something I'm kind of a sucker for, and also just upgrading and moving around and building buildings. It's a lot of fun, Yokohama. And my number 1 game from Tasty Minstrel is, well, probably many people's number 1 game that they came out with, originally published by DLP, but now Tasty Minstrel in America, and that's Orleans. Orleans is a bag building game, a pool building game, where you have a bunch of different folks in a bag, you're pulling them out and then placing them on different spots. There was a sequel to this called Altiplano, which actually came out from Renegade, but I think Orleans is the better game. It is a game in which you pull them out, you'll take things to get more, to throw more into your bag, and better people into your bag, to upgrade and give yourself special abilities, and to move around the person on a map collecting different resources. It is many different ways to get points. You'll never feel like your bag is perfect, and you're just trying to get your stuff done faster than everybody else. Deck building for me is fun. The idea of pulling stuff from a bag, even more so. This is another one where the Deluxeified version is so much cooler than the original one, but even the original Orleans is a lot of fun to play, and it's my favorite Tasty Minstrel game. Tasty Minstrel has made many, many, many games. There are some that I'm not a big fan of. There are some that I like. They just didn't make this top 10. What's your favorite? Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate Tasty Minstrel and all that they did for the hobby, and even though they're gone right now, I'm glad they were around when they were. Until next time, I'm Vasel, and this has been my top 10 games from Tasty Minstrel Games.